Welcome. My name is Lindsay Goldman, CEO of Grantmakers in Aging. We are a global membership organization that serves as a network and resource for funders and a champion for aging-related issues and investments. With over 115 members, GIA works to mobilize the social, intellectual, and financial capital required to improve the experience of aging now and in the future. Today's webinar is the second in a series we're calling Innovation and Hope, Building Momentum to Address Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementias. It's done in partnership with the Helen Daniels Bader Alzheimer's and Healthy Aging Speaker Series. And over the next several months, we're gathering the nation's leading thinkers, funders, and implementers to provide an up-to-the-minute comprehensive look at the community, program, policy, and scientific responses to this global public health challenge. Right now, the most effective interventions to support people living with dementia, as well as their caregivers, are non-pharmacological. And through these interventions, which are often grounded in the arts, both the fine arts and the art of human connection, people can experience joy, meaning, and purpose that can help to mitigate some of the very real challenges that do accompany dementia. I'm now pleased to introduce our panelists who have spent years working to improve the quality of life for people living with dementia and those who love them. John Zeisel, founder and Emeritus board member, and Marianne Grant, executive director of the I'm Still Here Foundation, which I'm happy to announce is GIA's newest member. Erica Arnold, assistant director of life enrichment of Poydras Home in New Orleans. Kristine Shah, executive director of the Arlington Council on Aging, and Dennis Clarke, trustee of the Cummings Foundation and chairman and CEO of Cummings Properties, who has generously provided us with a recording as he is currently out on jury duty. We will be making today's presentation available to anyone who wishes to view it later, so no need for copious note-taking. And after the panel, we'll have a Q&A, so please use the Q&A button on your screen, and the chat is open if you'd like to engage with each other in that way. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to John Zeisel, but first, a few words about John. I first heard John speak very early in my career, and I knew immediately that I wanted to be a part of the movement that he was building. It was a movement that brought me and the people with dementia that I was working with to museums, theaters, poetry cafes, and even the Big Apple Circus. John, I'm so grateful to you for opening my eyes to what's possible and that you're here to inspire all of us today. John?
Lindsay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those words. I'd also like to say I'm honored to be part of this event and thank both the Grantmakers in Aging, but also the Bader Philanthropies for supporting this event. I'm going to be talking about hope. And hope is a big message in dementia care. Hope, in this case, is not a matter of hoping the weather will get better or hoping things will, things won't be rainy, the day won't be rainy when my son gets married in 2 years. Hope is knowing you can make a difference. It's the hope that we explain by saying, how do I know I can do well at the test? I can make a difference by studying. YCMAD is hope when it comes to dementia. This next is a clip from a documentary called Revolutionizing Dementia Care, made and put together by PBS Virginia. And it really expresses what we mean by hope in a very short moment.
It's hard. Your whole life changes in an instant when you hear those words that, you have Alzheimer's disease.
I put together a treatment team after I got diagnosed. I had my neurologist, my general practitioner, I had a speech therapist, I have a life coach who I see weekly. So all those people were involved in terms of my treatment.
A lot of mentoring is helping people to understand, no, you can't do all the things you did do, but you still can do a lot. You still have a lot to be thankful for.
People who are living with dementia should not be excluded from the rest of the society. That's just not right.
We have just been taken down a road in this particular family of conditions that the person doesn't have anything to offer. People are proving that wrong.
It's having the hope that you can make a difference in the lives of people with dementia, because we really know now that that person is still there.
In a person-centered model of care, we try to cater everything that we do to that individual resident's likes and wants.
When you're a great care partner, you're always anticipating that other person's need.
I've learned that you really have to look for a community that fits to the individual as opposed to the individual fitting to the community.
When you can find a place where your loved one can be and are treated with the kindness that you want, then that gives you this big relief.
Coming here, my mom can be who she is.
The goal of I'm Still Here is to include safety and health and function. But the most important part of understanding that a person is still there is to develop for them a sense of self, that their own story becomes part of their life. The public narrative that most people encounter when they open a newspaper, when they turn on the internet, when they turn on the television or radio, is what I would call despair. As you can see from these slides, they address confusion and poor judgment and trouble with images and unfounded emotions and difficulty with words. All of this is part of what I call the despair narrative. We have a choice, and we can choose the public narrative of despair or the public narrative of hope, which I will describe in just a moment. The despair model is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe everything is going to be bad, it will be. It begins by seeing the negative and worrying about the future, getting sad. And you become inactive, you don't do things with the person. A lot of inactivity, abandonment. People just don't visit their parents anymore. It increases anxiety and aggression and agitation. And often people go for medicalization to find a medicine that will fix the problem. The alternative is what I call the hope model. It embraces the present. You're not happy somebody has dementia, but you are sad and you live with it. You see the person. You appreciate abilities and you continue to do things together. The result is more connectedness, more engagement, a calmer and happier person. But the real key to the result of the hope model is that it's a better relationship between the person and the person they love. So it's a relationship model as well as one of hopefulness. The goal of hope is engagement and well-being. It's not just saying we have to stop people from behaving a certain way. It's to create connectedness for the person, give them that identity I talked about, which is their own sense of self, autonomy, independence, feeling safe, growing, having meaning in their life, and above all, joy. There are 5 big elements that make a difference in our life and in how we live with and avoid and then live with dementia. The 5 big ones are exercise, diet, and sleep. Those are the basic 3. The 4th one is reducing stress. All of these impact inflammation in our body. And the 5th one, which is often overlooked and is the most important, is purpose and meaning. Purpose and meaning, click if you would, includes the following: creativity and the arts. Just keep on clicking, Alice. Learning, being part of a community, being an expert, teaching other people what you know, caring for others, taking care of yourself and taking care of your home. Purpose and meaning mean engagement. Engagement is the key. Engagement, in fact, is treatment for dementia. What we hear so often is that a person says, I don't feel I have purpose anymore. I don't feel that people treat me like a human being. That's why engagement is treatment. Now, engagement has another effect. Many people say I can multitask. Multitasking is a myth. You cannot drive to where you want to go and have an important phone call at the same time. When someone is lovingly engaged, like my grandfather with me on his shoulders, we can't also be engaged in anything else. Engagement replaces the 4 A's of Alzheimer's. The 4 A's of Alzheimer's are anxiety, agitation, aggression, and apathy, which is the 4th A, which is often overlooked. It doesn't bother me. The person's just sitting around doing nothing, but it bothers the person, and it increases all the 4 A's and other activities and behaviors. The principles of I'm Still Here all focus on the person being there and their engagement in life around them. The 4 are promoting dignity, ensuring engagement, building community, and learning and enlightening the person and the world around them. By promoting dignity, we mean focusing on what the person can do, what their abilities are, respecting their choices, uncovering not only what they want, but also their aspirations. What would they like to have? Creating meaning and reinforcing care partner understanding so that there is a true relationship built. Next. Ensuring engagement. I spoke about the importance of engagement in terms of purpose and meaning, but we have to engage the full person, not just a little piece of them. We use all of the creative arts. We include care partners in engagement so that it is the relationship. And we embrace new ideas and programs, which is really what you will hear about in the programs that you will be hearing about shortly by Erica and Kristine. What does building community mean? It means including those living at home, in care homes, everybody with dementia and their partners in a community. It means tapping community resources like the movie theater or the museum or the park or the Big Apple Circus when it comes to town. It includes engaging local community members as well as those who are just involved with people with dementia. And learning and enlightening is more than educating other people. The first thing is it's helping those living with dementia to learn and grow themselves. People with dementia can learn when they use procedural memory and procedural learning, and we must not think of them as people who are cut off from learning new things. It also means involving and informing the community as a whole so that the community can become dementia friendly as well as the individuals. The sources of hope are in our brains. They are not just a vague wish on my part and other people's part that things are there. Let's just move through these slides. The first source of hope is the fact that we have 100 billion brain neurons, as many as all the stars in our galaxy and numbers of galaxies there are. Our brains don't just stop. They are naturally curious and creative. They are made to explore and discover. These are skills that never leave us. And third, we're born with and never lose hardwired, preset, universal skills. These are the keys to engaging people with dementia. Feeling safe at home, facial expressions, which are the same for every culture, touch, the release of oxytocin and the contact neurotransmitters, music, dance, visual expression, and above all, tapping into emotional memories that never leave us, that are strongly in our brain, embedded there forever. The evidence for this is manifold, and we carry out a lot of research, and our grantees, the grantees of I'm Still Here that you're going to be hearing from, also collect and create evidence that we can take advantage of. The following are just some of the results that we find. That the programs we talk about, the I'm Still Here approach, the programs you're going to be hearing about by our grantees, provide a higher quality of life. They reduce anxiety. There are fewer falls per resident year than in the community, than in assisted living, than in nursing home and published versions. There's lower apathy. People are more engaged in doing things. They're not just sitting around doing nothing. There's less depression. This is a very important part. All of these programs reduce depression among those with clinical depression. In other words, if you're not depressed at all, it doesn't reduce your non-depression. But when among those with clinical depression, almost all of the engagement programs reduce it. And there's greater verbal communication, not only random utterances, but also related to what we read and what we talk about and what we do. And finally, there's greater engagement in the world around them, which of course is linked to the apathy, but also positive affect, pleasure. It's one of the things that is increased, which means that there's a lasting feeling of well-being. And I go back to the concept of joy in persons with dementia who are following this I'm Still Here approach, and that with programs that reflect the principles that I pointed out earlier. Next. So I want to thank you for listening. I'm more than happy to answer more questions. And I think that you will be most interested in the presentations that you will be hearing that the I'm Still Here Foundation, in part and largely due to, thanks to the Cummings Foundation support, provide others with dementia. Just to give you one last piece, we not only fund, we also provide information and support and guidance when possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Marianne Grant. I'm the Executive Director of the I'm Still Here Foundation. The next. As John described, the mission of I'm Still Here is to change the narrative for persons living with dementia and their care partners. We want to help people move from the despair that comes from a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other dementias to one of hope, love, joy, and engagement in family and community. How do we do that? In practical terms, revolves around programs and services. Next. We want to promote the idea that engagement is treatment. And starting next in 2023, we anticipate holding an annual educational workshop virtually, and we will host other outreach events in a few cities around the country. We will be sharing information on the benefits of the I'm Still Here principles and approach to dementia care, helping not only those diagnosed with the disease, but those who care for them, whether family members, caregivers, community organizations, or living facilities. Secondly, I'm Still Here has a long history of supporting arts, culture, and community programs that ensure that those living with dementia stay connected and engaged. Our 4 legacy programs provide opportunities for people to be engaged in their communities, to give them a sense of purpose, enjoying their lives and in the lives of their loved ones. I think you can imagine their foci by their title. Meet Me at the Movies. This is a participatory activity using short clips from classic films and TV shows, followed by audience discussion. These are often classic movies well known to the participants. The experience promotes meaningful interactions between those diagnosed with dementia, their care partners, family members, and their communities. Meet Me at the Museum is an activity where participants view and engage in discussions about works of art. Participants talk about what they see and the feelings that artworks evoke. This program serves as an enjoyable social gathering and helps with verbal expression and focuses attention. It Takes a Village embraces the community, local community, through activities in local venues, from musical events or visits to bookshops, parks, and cultural sites. The program takes people into the community, not only helping them, but helping to reduce the stigma around dementia, that somehow people with dementia cannot participate in life. They can. And finally, Arts for Alzheimer's enhances the cultural and creative life of people living with dementia. Amateur and professional artists in the community perform or work with people in dementia care facilities or day settings. Once again, engagement helps those with dementia to express themselves in fun and creative ways. Next slide. And finally, our new innovation program, which was started in 2020, is designed to support organizations, facilities, nonprofits, and community groups with seed funds to create innovative programs that engage persons living with dementia and their care partners. This program and approach is likely to be of particular interest to members of Grantmakers in Aging. I'm Still Here uses its expertise to work with other nonprofit and community organizations to develop and implement programs that engage those living with dementia. By offering seed funding, instead of managing the programs ourselves, we have a more extended reach. In 2021-22, we've had 4 programs. First, from the Memory Center at the University of Chicago and Goldmine Arts has provided over 400 art kits for individuals living at home to engage in meaningful art activities with their care partners. Martha's Vineyard Community Social Connections has hosted monthly cultural events in outdoor community venues, including a riding stable, a local museum, and a park. And we know of one in particular musical program where one of the participants got up to use her own sign language to really engage the audience. And you're going to hear about 2 more in just a moment. All of this has been made possible through the generosity of the Cummings Foundation, which has provided support for the organization and helped us to fund these programs. By supporting I'm Still Here, Cummings has extended their reach and supported us in guiding these organizations in creating programs using the I'm Still Here principles. Now I'm going to turn it over to 2 of our grantees, Erica Arnold from the Poydras home in New Orleans, followed by Kristine Shah of the Council on Aging in Arlington, Massachusetts, and they will be followed by remarks from Dennis Clarke of the Cummings Foundation. So Erica, your turn.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be a part of this. My name is Erica Arnold, and I am coming to you from New Orleans, from Poydras home, and I am joined by Peaches, and she has graciously agreed to be a part of our opportunity to share with you about the innovative community engagement program that we were able to start this past year from the I'm Still Here Foundation grant that we received. So if we could go to the next slide. I want to just give a little overview of what we did in our programming. So it obviously does involve the canine species. And what we did was we connected with a local animal rescue. And this particular rescue named Zeus's Place, they take dogs from high-risk shelters, from kill shelters, and take them in and find them forever homes. So we connected with Zeus's Place and we said that we would like to have a dog selected that would come and meet with our elders once a week for the day, spend the day with our elders. And during that time, we would take pictures of the interactions, get to know the dog, some of its qualities, and take little video clips, which we then would share on our community publications and our social media accounts to help get the word out about the need for a forever home and about the dog itself. So once that dog was adopted, we then selected a new dog for grooming. So when I explained this program to one of my colleagues, he said, well, it's like the opposite of therapy dogs. And I thought that was a great way to look at it, because I'm sure a lot of communities, a lot of your experiences have involved therapy dogs, as ours have, and it has been so wonderful. But in that construct, you have the dog that has been trained and is coming to provide a service to the elders, who will then receive from the dog. And in Man's Best Friend program, we switched that around and we said, let's find these dogs that are in need, that have been having a rough time so far, and allow our elders to reach out and provide therapy to the dogs. And throughout our time, we really enforced with our elders that they knew that they were reaching out to the community. We spent time every week looking at the website. So we reinforced the fact that that we were partnering with Zeus's Place, and that we were making a difference in the lives of these animals. And that was something that started and really grew with our elders. They took it upon themselves of really getting passionate of ideas of how we could help these dogs get adopted. So I wanted to share some photos with y'all of some of those ideas. Next slide. Our elders said, well, these dogs are going to need some training, and while they're being groomed by us, they're going to need a place to relax. They're able to get away from the shelter, and they're going to need a bed. So that's definitely something that our elders said, let's make some beds. They'll need to relax. They'll be able to not have all that barking, and we're going to help them learn to relax. So this is a picture of one of the no-sew dog beds that were made for this little pooch in the picture. And next slide. Our elders said that our dogs would need to know the joy of fashion. And this is just an example of one of the more basic things, but we did a variety of different fashions for different dogs. And this is just your basic bandana that advertises the option, again, that this dog is in need of forever home. And it was fun to do. Next slide. Our elders loved allowing our dogs the opportunity to feel at home in that real home environment, and to feel that love, and to, of course, have an opportunity to beg. And our elders were more than happy to reinforce that begging does get you somewhere. So this dog definitely got somewhere after this photo was taken. Next slide. In addition to beds that were made, we also made many different varieties of blankets, and we have elders that had a lot of background in sewing and, as we said, fashion. And so they were able to use that and bring that to the group. And we worked together and tried different styles. And this is another example of a no-sew blanket. That was a simpler one that we did do. And of course, you can see it was very much enjoyed by the dog. Next slide. One of our elders was very passionate about that these dogs, if they're going to find their home, they need to know how to walk on a leash. So I would see her every single week. She would take that leash from me, and she would take the dog out into we have a fenced in area with gardens and a backyard area. And she would walk that dog on the leash, which was very cute to see. Some dogs took to it more than others, but next slide. In addition to just learning to walk on a leash, also just the joys of a yard. A lot of our dogs haven't had the opportunity for that. And so they enjoyed just being outside and sniffing around, and we'd bring out their blankets sometime and just enjoy the weather. They could also run around out there and play. And we had a lot of great times doing that. Next slide. We had them wanting to share their culinary skills with the dogs. As you can see from the photos, we made many different types of biscuits and homemade treats for the dogs. We tried several different kinds According to our standards, some came out better than others, but I will tell you, according to the dogs, they were all delicious. And we always had extras that the elders then would say, oh, let them take it home, let them take it back to the shelter and share with their friends at the shelter. And that was something Zeus's Place really appreciated from us as well. And last but not least, our elders said they just need to feel loved. And I could have countless pictures of the amazing interactions where our elders just said, you know, took that time to be able to give and receive, but to give love to these animals. And it was a beautiful thing to see. So those are some of the highlights, but there were many, many different things that happened. And during our program, we did measure 4 specific things. We kept track of the elder attendance, not only their attendance though, but also their engagement during that time. And we did see an increase in both of those. And I will say, not every one of our elders would consider themselves a dog person. There was one specific elder that specifically told me, I am not a dog person. But even she, with that reinforcement and that knowledge of the community impact, that really resounded with her, and she became involved in the program as well as it progressed. So we definitely saw an increase in both of those. We monitored the medication administration that was given on those programming days, specifically those medications that were given for agitation, and we saw a decrease in those specifically on those programming days. And the last thing we kept track of was the adoption rate. And that was great to see. Definitely something that Zeus's Place reinforced with us and that I shared with our elders. We had an 86% adoption rate after the first year. And it was something that Zeus would come to us and say on several occasions, you know, hey, we have this dog, this breed is really hard to get adopted. Could you take this dog next? And so we did. There was a dog with special needs that they said, this is going to be tricky. Could you help us with this? And so they really valued us, and I passed that along, and our elders understood again that what they were doing was making a big difference, which goes to the additional outcomes that weren't necessarily measured, but were definitely evident. It strengthened the connection with our community. It was great to connect with Zeus's, and it was just very, very rewarding. It provided that sense of joy, that sense of comfort and companionship, of course, that you can get from an animal, but took it to that next level. It definitely allowed our elders to explore some of their own skills and their abilities and encourage them to, how can we implement these? Whether it was the fashion or the cooking and the baking or the sewing or the walking on a leash skills, and gathering those skills and abilities was amazing to see them do that. And when they were able to do that, it allowed us as a group to learn and grow together, which we definitely did. We learned a lot of things together, some through trial and error, but it was very rewarding as a group. The connection with the surrounding community, again, we reinforced that, which was so important in this program because that gave our elders a real sense of purpose in what they were doing. So I know I don't have much time, but I wanted to say thank you to allowing me to share an overview of our programming. And again, I just want to say thank you to the I'm Still Here Foundation for their support in allowing us to start this programming, and also give a special shout out to the Cummings Foundation for its support of the I'm Still Here, and also just supporting programs like ours. So I'm very happy now to hand it over to Kristine Shah.
Thank you very much, Erica. That was wonderful, and those pictures were so nice to see. It's always great to hear about these awesome programs around the country. I'm Kristine Shah, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging in Arlington, Massachusetts. We are a town in Massachusetts, and the Council on Aging has about 10,000 residents aged 60 and over. Our department in the town of Arlington helps serve all of those residents with all of their needs. And really, I wanted to thank the I'm Still Here Foundation for providing us this grant. What we were able to use it for is was launching our dementia-friendly fitness classes. I'm going to give an overview of kind of where we were at when we applied for this grant, how it was impacted by COVID, as we all were, and where we find ourselves now with it, and what it taught us about the future. So really, as we all remember very well, in March 2020, all of our programming and services and just our day-to-day changed drastically. In the aging services field, everything that we do really works better in person. We know that one of our main goals is to give social interaction. We want to avoid social isolation for the aging population, and COVID really threw a wrench into that for us. As many organizations did during the pandemic, we turned to virtual presentations like the one today and used Zoom a lot. We transitioned a lot of our programs and support groups and services to Zoom, as I'm sure all of you did. And we found a lot of positives, but there were a lot of negatives to the Zoom platform for people in the aging world. Not only was it difficult for those people to have and understand how to use the technology that we needed to participate in a virtual world, but it was also especially challenging for people living with dementia and other different mental health conditions, especially, and engaging through a computer screen is very different. So once we had turned a lot of our programs and as many as we could over to the virtual world, because it was really one of our only options during that time, we realized we were missing a huge chunk of really important people in Arlington. And that was a lot of the older adults in the community, and especially those living with dementia and their caregivers. They were especially isolated during this time. A lot of them were at more high risk of getting COVID, and really made sure that they, were home, as many of us were, but really isolated and having kind of a negative day-to-day experience. Our caregivers that we were hearing from were getting really burnt out, and they really needed something that could help kind of give them something to look forward to on a regular schedule. So what we did was we came together and brainstormed what we could provide virtually that would be relevant, that would put smiles on people's faces, and that would be a healthy, positive experience for people in town living with dementia and their caregivers. We know that caregivers are all different types of people. They're spouses, some of them are children, some are grandchildren, some are neighbors, some are family members, and some aren't. So we wanted there to be a program that would work for all of those types of people to participate in with the person in their life living with dementia as well. What we ended up doing was leaning towards the fitness and healthy movement side of things. Some of you may know the program Ageless Grace. It's a wonderful movement program for all levels of fitness and all types of people. It is especially knowledgeable about caring for those with dementia and other forms of mental health issues. So we worked with one of the instructors. Her name is Maria Skinner. You can see her on the screen, to really educate her on what type of fitness class we were looking for. We let her know in advance the people that would be participating. We told her, we made sure she was trained as a dementia friend. In Massachusetts, we have dementia friends training through the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. She knew the importance of facial expressions. She knew the importance of the music that she used for the people participating. And we really just created a custom virtual fitness class that took place once a week. It was on Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock. It was free of charge. People could come when they wanted to and skip weeks when they wanted to. We made sure to leave time at the beginning and the end of every session for the people that participated. Sometimes it was just the caregivers that could stay on and share contact information. They sometimes just stayed on and chatted and had kind of a coffee hour over Zoom. And the exercise instructor would log on for 45 minutes and do her Ageless Grace movement class. As you can see, she's sitting in a chair for the movement that she did for the class. And she always did this just to show people the range of motion that you could choose to do for her classes. Many of the people sat in chairs, some stood up, some kind of just watched and smiled listening to the music. And it really was something that people could participate in no matter what level they wanted to. She was great at engaging with people, asking what that she could do better. And one of the things she did was contacted the participants outside of the class and the caregivers to ask for specific suggestions about that person. So if the person had a favorite song or a favorite type of music, or that they, that I'm trying to think, had a specific time in their life that resonated with a certain type of music, she made sure to include those in her upcoming sessions. So we know that music is really important and brings a lot of positive experience to people living with dementia. And she tried to embrace that as much as she could and didn't necessarily just pick a random playlist. She would put a lot of thought into the music that she used in her classes. And one of the things we talked about for the future, once we've grown a little bit and have a little bit more of a tech savvy connection with music on Zoom, is really how the individual participants could possibly have individual songs playing. So for example, if there was somebody that was interested in jazz, if the music coming out of their computer could be jazz music while they participated in the class, but somebody else could have a different type of music or a specific song playing for them, just to really customize the experience for everybody. So we haven't figured out exactly how to do that yet, but it's something that we have some ideas on to move forward. So I did want to say that we also really started to value that time after the fitness class was over, when people were just the little squares in the screen on Zoom and talking to each other. A lot of them get to know each other pretty well. They ask about each other when someone's missing for a session, and they have shared contact information. Since things have been opening up to more in-person activities over the past year, some of these people that participated in this virtual class are coming to a lot of in-person things here at our community center as well. So this program is also a way for people to be introduced to our services in a pretty low commitment way. They can sign on for a Zoom session. They could keep their camera off if they wanted to, and over time, if they feel comfortable, just start to engage more and more. Some of those people are still participating with their cameras off, and that's okay, because we know that they have this to look forward to on their schedules with their caregivers, and it might be, the only thing that they have to look forward to in their schedule that day, or that the caregiver kind of gets a break from having to organize whatever the structure or activity is happening during the time of the exercise class. We do pre and post surveys with everybody that participates. We try to collect as much data as possible, but I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that people really value this class. They want to see it continue. It's because of its virtual nature, it's very possible to have people from outside of our town participate, and we welcome that. And it's also fairly easy to replicate It's really just, putting some extra thought around a virtual fitness class that is for older adults, and really just customizing and making sure that the instructor is aware of the population that they are teaching. We, really have appreciated the stories that we've heard from mostly the caregivers saying, it's given a little lightheartedness hour to their day when they participate in this with the person they're caring for. And it really, it's something that they've never done with them before. And I think that is actually all I have as far as our program, and we couldn't have done it without the grant from the I'm Still Here Foundation, and because of the Cummings Foundation's generosity to the I'm Still Here Foundation. So thank you to both of those. And I believe now we will hear our remarks from Dennis Clarke of the Cummings Foundation.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts about addressing the growing need for effective dementia care. Cummings Foundation was established by Joyce and Bill Cummings in 1986, and with current net assets of $3.5 billion, has grown to be one of the largest private foundations in New England. It has awarded more than $375 million in grants to Greater Boston nonprofits to support a range of causes, including human services, education, healthcare, and social justice. Our annual $30 million grant program provides 150 multi-year grants of up to $1 million each to a diverse group of local organizations. In 2011, Joyce and Bill joined the Giving Pledge, the organization founded by Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett, through which some of the world's wealthiest individuals and couples have publicly pledged to donate at least half of their assets for philanthropic purposes. Bill and Joyce had already donated 90% of their wealth by that time, including donating the majority of their commercial property assets to the foundation. Today, nearly all the buildings managed by Cummings Properties are actually owned by and operated for the sole benefit of Cummings Foundation. A significant part of Cummings Foundation's mission is to support the local senior population, including those living with dementia. In fact, the foundation owns and operates two not-for-profit senior living communities, New Horizons in Woburn and Marlborough, with many residents and care partners who live with dementia. It is important to each of our residents and for our aging population as a whole to support the development of innovative engagement programs for persons living with dementia and their care partners to improve their well-being, quality of life, and especially their dignity. Cummings' close association with Hearthstone Alzheimer Care began more than 2 decades ago, when the foundation selected Hearthstone to provide dementia memory-assisted living care in our New Horizons communities, care based on I'm Still Here principles and focus on innovative non-pharmacological approach. Cummings Foundation was also pleased to make 2 grants of $100,000 each to support the I'm Still Here Foundation's efforts because of the outcomes it achieves on a local and national level. Relying on I'm Still Here's expertise and network has enabled our foundation to contribute more to dementia programs in Massachusetts and elsewhere than we could have done on our own. We do not see a better way of helping effective dementia programming achieve scale than funding the I'm Still Here Foundation, which in turn provides seed funding for innovative initiatives such as those just presented, non-pharmacological dementia programs that provide dignity, well-being, and quality of life. We appreciate that I'm Still Here Foundation goes beyond assessing the quality of and providing seed funding for proposed programs. It also supplies know-how and feedback methods to contribute to the evidence base of such programs. I invite other philanthropic organizations to join Cummings Foundation in this effort, adding to the sustainability and growth of programs such as these. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. If everyone can just put their cameras back on, we will turn to our Q&A portion of the program. So the first question that we have is a quick one, and then the next question is a little more complicated. So first question, with respect to the I'm Still Here Foundation, what is the range of grant amounts for these programs? What do these programs really cost? And when is the next cycle?
You're muted, John.
Marianne, do you want to answer
Okay,
that?
I started to. Yes, our grant awards range from $5,000 to $10,000. So these are intended to be seed funding to help organizations get started. We've just completed a competition and we'll be announcing the next round probably in November, December, with grant applications due soon after the first of the year. We have a two-step process, a letter of inquiry and then the grant application.
I just want to add, the purpose of the grants is to get things moving, is to get innovation moving. So our grants committee studies what is really innovative. We don't just want somebody to say, we're doing this wonderful program, we want a little bit more to do it again. We're looking for new ideas. And the second thing is we're looking for new ideas that reflect the principles that I just presented, that Marianne and I and the board have developed as part of this I'm Still Here Foundation. That's the most important part. Those are the two most important parts of our granting.
And do you make grants all over the country, or are you limited to a specific geography?
All over the country.
So here's a harder question. For funders whose portfolio may include grants to programs, services, organizations serving people with dementia, but maybe they're not just exclusively focused the way that you are, how can funders incorporate the I'm Still Here principles into their current grant making? Because it's very clear the benefit when you incorporate those principles into programming. But what are some of the lessons for the funders out there, both those that have a lot of capacity and those who can make small grants that can make a difference?
So let me answer in two ways, and then maybe Kristine and Erica and Marianne want to add something. There are two ways to think about this. One is anybody, any organization, any funding organization can take the principles that we outlined and the principles that are on our website and incorporate those in their funding approach to say, we're going to be giving the Beta philanthropies could say, we want to have some funding for programs like this. And because we really want to develop the HOPE model and the I'm Still Here model, here are the principles that we want you to demonstrate in your proposals that you will be fulfilling. The other way, and maybe this is self-serving, is to approach us and say, look, would you be partner with us and be the vehicle through which we find programs like Kristine's, like Erica's, like our horse program, et cetera, because you are the magnet for these things. And once you've helped us identify them, could you help us screen them, work together? So we could form a partnership with any organization that would like to do that.
Thanks, John. Here's another hard question. What are some strategies that funders can use to counter the prevailing narrative of despair and stigma? What's our role as grant makers here in helping to shift this narrative? Is it through, solutions-focused journalism? What are the levers here?
Erica, Kristine, do you have any thoughts?
I was going to say, asking in the applications specifically to address that, and that way you can get a good feel for how the agency or organization really feels about that, and if they truly understand the impact that angle versus the despair and medical side of things, I would say.
And Kristine, to continue on that thread, was there any kind of training or education that you needed to do with your team to shift them from that narrative of despair that, you know, a lot of us who work with people with dementia can sometimes get trapped in?
Yes, this really came to us at a time that our team had just been educated in being a dementia-friendly town. In Massachusetts right now, we're really trying to become more dementia-friendly town by town and age-friendly as a whole. And we have a lot of great resources here that had recently trained our staff, but it is definitely something that we talk about a lot when we're meeting with local nursing homes or local day programs, or really anybody in the aging services field. And, you know, coming at it from how John described it, and the benefit of the social interaction and keeping these people living with dementia and their caregivers really active in the community. So
and not infantilizing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, leveraging their talents to train dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a beautiful concept.
Let me just say, if I might, that you talked about what could anybody do. One is stories. We see online every so often a miracle, somebody who hasn't been talking all of a sudden listens to music and they talk, or they start to behave like they used to when they were ballerinas. These miracles need to be presented not as miracles, but as normal, everyday, regular things that happen. And we ought to say, this is what everybody should expect. So that's the first thing, not to be surprised, but to say, look at what's going on. This is really great. It happens everywhere. The second is these outcomes, whether they be outcomes, the feedback we get. And that we should be, as Kristine said, and as Erica pointed out, they have been collecting stories, feedback, and data that demonstrate, hey, this stuff works. And you saw pictures of people making knots in blankets or making little things saying, please adopt me. This is not rocket science. This is everyday life. And we have to make it acceptable, normalized. Everybody should have a dog program like Erica's, and everybody should have a video Zoom yoga program. Isn't this a town that shouldn't have any of these things?
Thank you, John. We're heading to the end of our hour, but I do want to raise something that we're not going to have time to touch on today, but I would love to touch on in some of our future webinars. So one person commented that the word dementia itself is loaded with stigma and despair. It dates back to the 1700s and is rooted in the Latin for out of one's mind, which I actually didn't know. And so the question that was posed is, should we change that? Should we be using a different phrase like cognitive impairment or cognitive decline? And, you know, at GIA, we've been very engaged in this reframing aging initiative for a couple of years now. And maybe it's time to reframe dementia, and maybe dementia is not the right word. It's just something for all of us to think about. And I hope this is an ongoing dialogue that we can continue to have. I really want to thank all of our panelists for being with us today. Thank you to Bader Philanthropies for supporting this webinar. If you are a funder, please join us in Scottsdale, Arizona, October 16th through 19th for our annual conference. This year, we are meeting in real life, some of us for the first time ever, and we'll have some really interesting dementia-related content to share there too. Save the date for our next webinar, which is September 22nd from 3 to 4 Eastern on economic security in partnership with the National Council on Aging. Follow us on social media. And please complete the brief survey that you'll receive right after the program. It really helps us to improve our programming. Thank you for being with us today, and please be well.